Hi. I'm going to talk a little bit about solutions today, and I'm going to start us off with a quote from Russell Barker, who is a journalist and columnist for many decades, and so someone who has some good insight, was a political correspondent, White House correspondent, and someone who's been up in the trenches. And here's some of the things that he has to say. He says, "The cruel law of life is that solved problem creates two new problems. And the best prescription for happy living is not to solve any more problems than you have to." Now, it sounds a little confounding, especially as someone who does conflict resolution and people who are thinking that this is about solving problems. And I'm going to up the ante here. I just found in my daily calendar quote from Patti Smith, which goes like this: "Nothing is ever solved. Solving is an illusion. There are moments of spontaneous brightness when the mind appears emancipated, but that is mere epiphany." That's from Patti Smith's memoir, The Year of the Monkey. So what are we going to do about this? Why am I saying this? Well, there's a couple reasons why we're not going to solve all the problems. Now, first of all, it's because everything is getting increasingly complex in this world. As we grow as a society, and every time we solve a certain problem, we open up to a new layer of problems. So let's just say that over the civilizational time, we had this industrial revolution and agriculture, and we solved all sorts of problems of just not needing to just forage around, and we started coming up with systems to be able to survive as a whole society. And the Industrial Revolution sure as heck caused a bunch of problems for us, and this stepping into modernity, as we think about it, has caused a challenge. And then coming out of the 60s, all sorts of people are starting to recognize sort of ecological impact of that, and people have been coming up with new solutions to those problems. But as you may notice in our current politics, progressive causes are also bringing up their own challenges. So every time we solve something, we're going to be creating a more complex dynamic, and that means that we're going to need to be ready to solve that. The other reason why we're not going to solve anything is because that gives us the idea that we're reaching some sort of fixed state where we're just going to be done and everything's going to be sorted out. But guess what? We're not going to get there either. We are living in a dynamic process. And as I spoke about in the video from last week, everything's just another process. So we won't just get to some fixed state. We're going to actually move into a new dynamic process. Now, something I used to say as a joke, as a tagline that maybe I could have for my conflict transformation business, would be increasing shades of adequacy, because anyone who's trying to sell you a problem or a solution is a freaking liar. People don't necessarily want to just go from inadequate to more adequate to more adequate, but honestly, that might be the best thing we can be doing. So if this sounds like a lot to you, don't worry. I have a whole plan for us to how to talk through all of this. So check out my next video, subscribe to the channel here or wherever you're finding this, because coming up next, I'm going to talk about the fourth of the 3 rules of conflict. Now, if that sounds confusing, you might check out the old videos, but basically the fourth of the 3 rules of conflict is that there's not going to be a final outcome. I'll talk to you more about that in the next video.